Oh, welcome here in our reflections. Reflections we are using with A Course in Miracles, reflections that are for us really reasonable in the sense of, yes, I do have a contact with the Holy Spirit's mind. Yes, I do have a connection with Christ within myself. And yes, I can hear his voice, and I'm willing to join him in that what is really a reflection inviting to. A reflection will always look at perspectives and opening the small perspective of which the human being is suffering of um, yeah, being stuck in its meanings and being stuck with opinions, being stuck with experience from the past, into a broader perspective, into a perspective in which I can see, okay, nobody's pushing me, nobody's stepping on me, and nobody is in truth really wanting something from me, but I am opening up to a new perspective and to a willingness to include myself in the communication with each and everyone, with all of myself, of my mind, in let's say, um, a broader or a greater experience. And that is what the reflection does. That is why we join, why we invite each other, why we are accompanying each other. That is really the reason, in because we are using the workbook of A Course in Miracles, because it does open us to perspectives of what we thought that this course is offering us, or what it is for, and we let ourselves be really surprised in that understanding that it is not about a conceptual understanding, that it isn't about a categorization of what I would think feels safe within the dream, safe within the concept, within my categories, but is a kind of a renewal and a newness. And this is how we want to approach this entire sequence in what we call post-resurrection. Because in our celebration of the resurrection of our own mind and acknowledging, yes, we are talking here about resurrection in light, which means it is the acknowledgement, the recognition that there's light and that there's only light, and there is not really any value or any reality in what I call myself as a little personality, and I'm just completely okay to have that change of personality that is going on all the time, as we know that bodies are changing all the time. And so to allow that the Christ self is acknowledged and is coming forth. And this is what we share in this holy instant. And this is also what Jesus directs us in this review of those lessons 91 to 110, because it directs us clearly to remembering what truth is, and that we do not let any illusion stand next to truth. But this is quite a step. If you can see that you are trained in your mind through these lessons, through this workbook of A Course in Miracles, to no longer place your past concepts, your illusions of the past, your illusions of your personality next to what is offered from out of time, what is coming from Holy Spirit, what is coming from Christ mind, what is coming from your own whole and holy mind. And so the question, of course, how do I really deal with concepts, ideas, thoughts being offered within the course, becomes a very valid and necessary perspective, and valid question that you want to bring into consideration in your not just study but extension as a teacher of God. And so something that he mentions in that introduction of this third review, that we mostly, with the checkbox, handling very quickly, because he's kind of talking about this format of devoting 5 minutes twice a day or longer if you would prefer it. And there follows something that brings that into perspective, of which I want to talk to you today and share with you. Like what is this for, and how are we dealing with ideas and with the practice in our own mind? And already in the beginning, he told us that rituals are not our aim and would even defeat our goal. So, in other words, he says that if we're making the practice to a complete ritual and we are just under ritualistic influence and just want to have it completely ritualistic, we are actually counterproductive to the already guaranteed outcome, successful outcome of this mind training of A Course in Miracles. And so a little bit further down, when he talks, going back to about this format, he's looking with you, with us all, of how to deal with that, what the thoughts as they are given. And then I want to go with you to a part in the Course that has been dictated at the very end and is there at the very end, the clarifications of terms. And I will use here the sparkly version, because it's only in the sparkly edition, it's an edition, right, of the Course, where this clarification of terms are put in the beginning of the Course. And my feeling is that Hector, who kind of communicated that with the Holy Spirit, just got it right, that these clarifications should be at the beginning, right at the beginning of the Course, maybe right after the introduction or even before the introduction, because it does show us what it is about and how we are supposed to approach what is offered in this Course and what this Course serves for, what purpose it has. And so, yeah, let's share this part that is often just forgotten or at the very end, because then everybody says, well, it's just about the definitions of Holy Spirit, spirit, mind, forgiveness, and so on and so forth, Jesus, the Christ. But there's so much more to that, that in those few pages reveals an entire new way of approaching what has been given us from out of time we call A Course in Miracles. And now, still finishing up these sentences of the introduction to this III review, where we are doing lessons 111 to lesson 120, reviewing the lessons 91 to 110, and where he actually says that in these 5 minutes twice a day or longer, they should be used to considering the thoughts that are assigned. And then he goes actually into 3 points of this consideration in our mind. And so we want to use that as a very practical example, how we find ourselves in the mind training right now, and will connect it with how Jesus expresses it in the clarifications of terms. Now, here in the introduction, he says, read over the ideas. So first, I should just read over it. Ideas and the comments that are written down for each day's exercise. And then, second part, begin to think about them. So I'm invited to have my own thoughts about that. Isn't that great? That's actually also a thousands of year old ritual, and thinking about whatever is being offered. And yes, we should think about everything we see and perceive. We should think about the world, how we perceive it. We should think about how we perceive each other in our relationships. And we should think about what we think about and how we experience situations, no matter if they are judged as joyful or they are judged as negative emotions. So let's think about those ideas as they are presented on a daily basis, while letting your mind relate them to your needs, your seeming problems, and all your concerns. So we should think about how those thoughts and presented ideas are related with how we were feeling and thinking and experiencing situations up to now, or how they present themselves in the very moment. And then there comes this third part that is really bringing it then to the clarity, when he says, place the ideas within your mind and let it use them as it chooses, as mind chooses, as your free mind chooses. Give it faith that it will use them wisely, being helped in its decisions by the one capitalized, the one who gave the thoughts to you. Now, this course comes from Jesus Christ, right? And so it is a work from out of time, and it has been given from our own whole mind out of time, so that we basically can shorten time, can collapse time, and can see and arrive at the conclusion that there is no conclusion here, but we are completely focused and determined to be successful in the full transformation of our mind. And that can only mean to wake up from this dream and to wake up in the light, to wake up in resurrected mind, in your own resurrected mind. Wonderful expressed. And what can you trust but what is in your mind? Have faith in these reviews. The means the Holy Spirit uses will not fail. This is where the Holy Spirit is involved the moment we utilize an idea of this course. And of course, you could open up this course anywhere in the textbook, or in I just opened it up in lesson 139, where we will arrive in a moment. I will accept atonement for myself. Or I'm opening it up for the lesson of the day, and I will read, I'm at lesson 113. I'm one self united with my Creator. One self united forever, eternally with my Creator, with God Himself. And salvation comes from my one self, from that one self. Or tomorrow, I am spirit, and I will accept my part in God's plan for salvation. This is really just for minds who realize I have really nothing else to do than to be about the business of full transformation, which is the business of healing of mind, which is the business of salvation. And we accept a plan that is given us from Him, from God Himself, because salvation is my only function here. There will be a review then the next day. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation, lesson 100, and so on and so forth. Now, from here, to look at the perspective of these offered clarifications of terms, with I hope you have already arrived with them, and if not, let it be, and put it in your mind as, okay, this could be a preface. This is part of a foreword. This is really that I want to read immediately when I get to this course, in order to have a perspective what is here given me and what this thing is for. And so originally Jesus called it not clarifications of terms, but the use of terms. And this is also the use of this course. So it's all about how we use those means that are given us in order to complete the acceptance of the atonement for ourselves, to complete the restoration of mind, to come to the clarity that love doesn't really need to be taught and cannot really be taught, but to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, I need help. And here a work from out of time is offered me. And so it might be good that I align my mind also to those meanings, to those terms as they are given, so that I do not misinterpret what I'm reading or what I'm listening to. And so he starts out with this very famous and popular sentence by saying, this is not a course in theoretical philosophy, nor is it concerned with precise terminology in connection with origins. This is already amazing because it already says and clarifies, hey, we do not really need here to express ourselves in our concepts and to exchange what philosophical or conceptual meaning would be the better one or the complete right one. It is not really concerned with precise terminology in connection with origins. It is not a course in theoretical philosophy. It is concerned, and now listen with me here what he says. It is concerned and uses the word and expression only with atonement. Now, of course, we need to already get to know what he means with atonement, because when we are coming from the perspective of the Old Testament, that it would be a kind of self-punishment, self-sacrifice, atoning for the sins, he means here something completely different. He means here, and he puts it right next to that sentence, or the correction of perception. Correction of perception is how we understand the word atonement. It is also written with a capitalized A, so it determines also that there's more to it. There is literally a divine frequency behind it and in it that we are opening up when we are allowing this correction of perception to occur in us. The correction itself of all that I believe of myself, the self-concept, all that determines what I see as the world, or I see you or anyone seemingly outside myself, is already this expression of atonement better, because the atonement is the outcome of the atonement, where a unification, a realization of oneness is occurring. So atonement is literally the result or the outcome, the inevitable outcome of atonement. He continues that the means of the atonement is forgiveness. So the moment we are about to see things differently, we are about correction, that we are about to change our perspective about everything we see and we have determined with our meanings. That is what we call forgiveness. It is really a new seeing. The structure of individual consciousness, he puts it under quotes, individual consciousness, because an individual consciousness is in truth meaningless. So he says here that the structure of individual consciousness is essentially irrelevant. Why is that so? Because it is a concept representing the original error or the original sin. And this is where we were looking at it, and all these ideas of God has punished me, and he has thrown me out of the paradise, and I'm bad, and I have committed sin because I've eaten from the fruit from this tree, and now the tree of knowledge is even protected. I cannot even re-enter. All that conceptualized has made up this, what we call the ego's thought system. the structure of individual consciousness is essentially irrelevant because it is a concept representing the original error or the original sin. To study the error itself does not lead to correction. And many of us, even as course students or course teachers, need to hear that and need to reconsider that. Because if I'm just using the Course in Miracles in order to understand the concept better, if I'm just using this course in order to get smarter, I'm just using it to have a better thought system and better ideas about a conceptual meaning, I'm missing it altogether. The study, the error of to study the error itself does not lead to correction if you are indeed to succeed in overlooking the error. See, he uses here already the expression of an action of mind of overlooking the error. This can be trained to overlook the error. And this is then the application of the lessons, how we are going along in the mind training of A Course in Miracles. And it is just this process of overlooking at which the course aims. So this is what the main mind training is. This is what it is about, of removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. We are being trained and literally nourished and guided to be in this activation, in this activity of this process of overlooking what in truth isn't really even here, overlooking what we call the illusion, overlooking what we call the dream, overlooking what we call this world represents. And you can start out right now by overlooking what the meaning of a Devavan is, or of this glass is, or of what you hear about the Ukraine war is, or what you hear in your daily news. We are practicing overlooking. All terms of potential are potentially controversial. All terms, no matter however we term anything that we try to utilize in order to facilitate teaching, it is controversial, and those who seek controversy will find it. Yet those who seek clarification, see here he uses the word clarification, will find it as well. So we are in an expression, and we will hear of use of terms which are helping us for clarification instead of seeking controversy. They must, however, be willing to overlook also the controversy, right? So we're applying it also wherever there is controversy. And we find that in our communities, on whatever, Facebook and all these groups, discussing whatever questions, whatever statements. And of course, it doesn't take long until it becomes very obvious that there are minds in controversy or expressions of controversial nature, many times quite judgmental. And all we are really asked, if we want to live and apply this Course in Miracles, is to overlook controversy. You must, he said, they must be willing to overlook controversy, recognizing that it is a defense against the truth in the form of a delaying maneuver. So if you don't want to delay anymore your homecoming, delay your awakening, delay your full transformation of mind, then please listen to these words and make a firm decision that I do not want to defend myself against the truth anymore. Because if I defend myself, I am attacked. All defense is a defense against the truth. Their logical considerations as such are necessarily controversial, since they depend on belief and can therefore be accepted or rejected. And this is what most of this discussion those expressions are. It becomes either to a supportive acceptance or to a rejection, or to discuss it. Is it either this or that? No? But theological considerations are as such necessarily controversial. A universal theology, now he makes the step above that all, and this is also a highly popular and taught expression. A universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible but necessary. Almost all teachers of God know this sentence by heart, and it can be used very effectively in these moments in which these controversial statements and a sense of being right or a sense of making the other being wrong are expressed. A universal theology is impossible. This needs to be first accepted. If it is impossible, it doesn't make any sense to even try to describe it, to discuss it, or to make it up, first of all. But a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. We all have need of this. Each and everyone walking in time-space, being in his own mind about a new renewal of perspective, a rebirth, we would say, will accept that this is a necessary decision. This is a necessary experience. And it is this experience toward which the Course is directed. So as we were just sharing about, it's not about it, it's not really teaching about it, but we are directed toward this experience. Here alone, consistency becomes possible, because here alone, uncertainty ends. Wow. So uncertainty, or ending uncertainty, I think every human being has enough of uncertainty and is ready to enter into a certainty that comes from God, into a certainty that is accompanied and shown by light frequency that literally lets us being stunned in our own mind. And almost you could even say, like, on the movement of ego mind thoughts being paralyzed or being frozen. And that's a good initial experience also, to see, oh my God, I don't even have the capacity to conceptualize something or to talk about that. Here alone, consistency becomes possible, because here alone, uncertainty ends. This Course remains within the ego framework, no question about that. It is set for the ego's framework, for the ego itself, for the human ego mind, and it is set and remains within the ego's framework where it is needed. It is not concerned with what is beyond all error, because it is planned only to set that direction towards it. That is how we expressed it with the introduction, that this Course is not teaching the perfection of love. It is concerned about removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. And these sentences of the introduction of this Course we cannot share often enough, because it is a description about the curriculum. The free will doesn't mean that you can establish the curriculum. It is really about removing these blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is our natural inheritance. This is where the aim is set. Because the teaching the meaning of love, how he expresses it in the introduction, is beyond what can be taught. Period. It is what we are. In other words, it is what we all are. No, doesn't matter how the expression is. At the core of every expression, of every consciousness, is the creative, untouched, perfect thought and light that we all are. So we bring that forth through the teaching, but I'm still just teaching to myself what I'm no longer willing to hold on, and I'm now willing to let go. This is what we are teaching. And then, of course, in the introduction, we arrive at that the opposite of love is fear. So this is about the undoing of fear. This is the acceptance of the atonement, the undoing of fear. But what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. What is divine, what is God in me, in you, in all of us, doesn't have an opposite. Continuing with our clarifications of terms. Therefore, so again, this course remains within the ego framework where it is needed. It is not concerned with what is beyond beyond all error, because it is planned only to set the direction towards it. Therefore, it uses words which are symbolic and cannot express what lies beyond symbols. The same what we just said, it cannot be expressed what lies beyond symbols. That we encounter beyond the symbols is an immediate experience of light frequency. And so whenever we use words and we hear words and we hear meanings and we interpret of what we are hearing in connection with that meaning, it is still symbolic, and therefore there's a value in the acceptance of certain meanings given to those symbols. And this is what he will share with you in this use of terms, in these clarifications of terms. It is always the ego that questions, because it is only the ego that doubts. The Course merely gives another answer. And here the answer is also originally capitalized. And so when we look at that, we are talking here about the answer, and that the true answer is literally one answer, and that answer comes from God himself. Then we know also that we are shown in a revelatory experience itself. Here he says the Course merely gives another answer once a question has been raised. And also you can raise whatever question. You will in truth only have one question, and you will be given at the end only one answer. But however, this answer doesn't attempt to resort to inventiveness or ingenuity, which means then an expression in 1,000 ways of 1,000 answers to 1,000 questions. These are attributes of the ego. The Course is simple. It has one function and one goal. Remember that always. The Course is simple. This Course in Miracles is simple. Many times it is being discussed how difficult it is, or argued about that. But let's stick with that as it is expressed already in these beginning clarifications. It is simple. This Course is simple. It has one function. It has one goal. Only in that does it remain wholly consistent, because only that can be consistent. The ego will demand many answers. So if there are many answers given, you can sense already, and you should remember that the ego might most probably be involved in a multiplicity of answers, because the ego will demand many answers that this Course does not give. This is a statement, okay? This Course doesn't give answers, many answers to the ego about many, many questions. It doesn't recognize as questions the mere form of a question to which an answer is impossible. The ego may ask, how did the impossible occur? What a good question, right? You probably have read it dozens of times in your forums and groups. How did the impossible occur? Expressed in thousandfold way to what did the impossible happen, and may ask in many forms, yet there is no answer, only an experience. Isn't it awesome? Seek only this and do not let theology delay you. I invite you to strengthen and to confirm, to seek only the experience, because that is the result and the answer of your acceptance of the atonement of yourself. And that answer, that experience will show you um, that the impossible in truth has not occurred, right? So your question is clearly experienced. And to what did the impossible happen? That mind, to that ego mind, that human mind, to which apparently the impossible, this dream has happened, isn't really real, right? It's just a made up conception of a self concept, of a self perspective, a hallucination in itself. In that sense, the answer, the experience shows you that that mind isn't really there either. You will notice that the emphasis on structural issues in the course is brief and early. Afterwards and soon it drops away to make way for the central teaching. Since you have asked for clarification, however, these are some of the terms that are used. And so he would even then add on that originally in the notes, I think it was added on. Let me just look it up very quickly here in my complete 7-volume combined edition, and it was expressed. These are some of the terms that are used in the beginning. So already here the indication, as you could hear, you will notice that the emphasis on structural issues in the course is brief and early. So that is an indication that even it was dictated at the very end, this use of terms, it belongs actually at the beginning, at the beginning, early on. And so in the text, and where he goes into terms and into explanations and definitions of terms, also as they were used in the Bible. So also here, these clarifications, this use of terms, he gives you to all the words used in the Christian terminology a very great and clear perspective. And you will love it how we're gonna go along with those terms. For today, I will leave it with that. He just says that once again, afterwards and soon it drops away, right? All these definitions of terminology and what vernacular is used, it drops away and it makes way for the central teaching. Again, what is the central teaching? The central teaching is the clarity of the atonement, what the atonement brings about. It brings about an experience of undoing of all fear thoughts, and therefore it represents the correction of mind and how we experience ourselves, that we have accepted or are accepting right now all our perception, all our thoughts, everything that has any meaning about anybody or anything, in an overlooking mode, in a new way of seeing things. And this is the central teaching, because it will lead into a revelatory experience. It will open up our mind to the spirit. It will open up to that light of creative thought, of creative mind. It will let us remember that we are one with God, that we are in union, in communion, he uses the word, with our Creator, with our source. And that needs, of course, the basis to always have it completely clear that we have not made ourselves. We have not created God. We are not the creator of God. We have only made up concepts about God, but we are a perfect creation of Him, of our Creator, and we have not made ourselves. That is a complete idea of salvation. And thank you. Thank you. I wish you a most wonderful day, weekend, week, and I see you again. Either live next Saturday or whenever you join in and listen here to this Course in Miracles Reflections. I love you, and I'm very grateful for your acceptance of this teaching that Jesus Christ is not just offering us personally, but really to all of ourselves, to the entire world. And with this, we leave it. Bye-bye.